Welcome to the Evolve Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have my friend, Freddie Clark.
Hello.
Hey, Freddie, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Joe?
Good. So, Freddie, I know you work at a print shop, right?
Right.
And what is your role at the print shop?
The name of the screen printing company is called Triple Stamp Press. We do water-based screen printing, and I am outside sales.
Awesome. And you're also a photographer to some degree, right?
Oh, I'd say like very, very amateur. Posting through platform Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used like I guess what would be deemed a professional camera ever. I enjoy taking photos of things that like look good to my eye.
And I know you do a lot of like black and white photos, like primarily.
Yeah, I really got interested. I don't know why. I kind of made the switch. But yeah, for the last, I would say, I think probably 3 years, I've really been interested in shadows and black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And that's primarily when I'll take a photograph, I like to mess around with black and white filters.
What is it about like the light and shadow and black and white photos that really captured your eye?
I think shooting with black and white, it's easier, I think, to make the photo look great, if that makes sense. To me, It's like there's almost like too many variables with color.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with black and white, you've got different shades of black and white, but it's a little bit, I think, easier for me to like kind of wrap my head around.
Yeah.
And I also like shooting in black and white. You can really focus in on things I think that would, in a normal like full color picture, get lost in translation, like
mm-hmm.
shadows or like surface textures. And I really, really enjoy seeing those in photographs, and I think you can find a lot of different textures and shadows, primarily in nature. And so that's what really I think draws me to black and white photographs and photography.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, what sort of camera are you shooting on? Are you using your phone, or like do you have another camera?
Yeah, it's all on my phone. I don't have a camera. I can see maybe one day
mm-hmm.
getting more into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more of just I really like shooting, more with my phone. I never really was like a pull out my phone and take a picture guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over these last few years, I've tried to take more stock of like, I will be older one day.
Right.
It would be great to start like kind of cataloging some like things that happened, in my 30s. Now I'm newly into my 40s, and looking back and like seeing photographs of where I was at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. And the photos on your like main feed and on your Instagram are like pretty minimalistic from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And you typically don't put much information about the photo. It's usually just the date.
Yeah.
And that speaks to that like cataloging perspective. And you're not posting photos every day, right? It's just more of a day in the life type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely just a day in the life.
Cool. When did you start doing that? Was it that within the past couple of years?
Yeah, so I started really posting 2019. Well, actually, 2020 is when I really started posting with just the date. And I think a lot of people were living kind of 2020, we had the pandemic, and
right.
everyone was really going through their individual struggles, but also everyone together was going through worldwide struggles.
Right.
And that's when I started putting the date. And I can look back on those pictures, and now we're like 3 years in, and I can remember where my head was at, what was going on, how I was feeling. So it's more like, instead of like over explaining the picture, which is fine, people do that, and I think that's great. This kind of gives a little bit more mystery, and it's more, I think, self-serving for me, because I know what was going on, but everyone else can look and they think, okay, this is what Freddie took a picture of on this date. So that's when I started just really kind of less information about the picture, more focus on the date, and then just kind of like, if someone is looking at my photos and admiring it, they can just look at the photo. There's no context to it.
Right. And like the black and white definitely adds some layer of mystery to it as well.
Yeah.
That more noir style. You can't see everything that's going on with the photo because you can't see the color. And in my personal experience with photography, I found black and white photography, or like even just adding on a black and white filter on a digital photo, to be much more forgiving to the quality of the photo, because you can sometimes take out some of the graininess that you would get in a color photo if the lighting is not so good.
Right.
But with the black and white, because since you're not using the full color spectrum, some of that quality is preserved.
100%. Yeah, you basically took what I said and said it better. Yeah, that's exactly what I am attracted to with black and white.
Yeah. So I know your name is actually Aaron.
Yeah.
But you go by Freddie.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Sure. It's I'm gonna turn red. So Freddie is a nickname that I received in I'd say 8th grade. And it's just kind of one of those things that's stuck.
Yeah.
So I guess the ethos of Freddie, well, I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is like an incredibly conservative part of Virginia.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with nicknames, it's just where I lived. I was really into and interested in music, and played in the school band, and from that, I discovered kind of punk rock, and then started playing with some friends of mine in the basement.
Nice.
And we did that, and it was great. And what's the next step? Like playing music in a basement? Well, you want to like make a CD.
Right.
And like my understanding of a CD at the time was like, if you were a band and had a CD in a store, like you were like famous, like you like made it. So it was like a big deal.
Was this in the 90s or early 2000s?
Yeah, so this would have been 1998. So we decided to make a CD. We had a friend kind of like broker that deal who was in another band, that local band that we would play with. They were a lot older than we are. And so we went, we drove from Lynchburg to Roanoke to make this CD, this record. And, it was great. It was like such a fun process. And the guy that came with us from the other band, his name was Dave Ross. For better or for worse, might have been a bad influence. I mean, he was like the friend that would like go to the like, the gas station to buy beers for these underage kids or whatever. But
how old was he at the time compared to you?
Yeah, so he was a lot older. I mean, he was in his 20s. And again, the way that we like met was he played in another band, And you know, it's just like when you're working at a restaurant, like, you know, you've got people that are working the host stand that are, you know, younger, and then you've got, you know, people, you know, of all different ages working in the restaurant.
Right, and you were about, what, 16, 17?
Yeah, about 16, 17.
Okay.
But the reason I got the nickname is, so we like went to a restaurant, like in between takes or whatever, like go get dinner, and the guy that was like Dave, who was with us through this whole like extravaganza, had like convinced a bunch of the folks that were like waiting on our table that I was worked in movies, was a stunt person for Freddie Prinze Jr.
Okay.
Which is like ridiculous because I think Freddie Prinze Jr. was in like rom-coms.
Yeah, mostly.
I don't think he was like needed a stunt guy. So anyways, that's like the ethos of the nickname. It's like him convincing a bunch of people that I was someone that I wasn't, which was like weird. And they even called me Freddie, like, which is also like unbelievable if you like zoom out, like, okay, yeah, he's a stunt person, but like, why does he have the same name? It doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, that's where I got that nickname from.
So I guess my question is, why did it stick? Like, why are you still going by that name?
The other members of the band are like still friends that I've had to this day. And they like call me that, and they like introduce me to people like by that name. And for better or for worse, like it just stuck. And like, to be honest, like, I don't know, it's kind of neat to have a nickname. But you know, if someone wanted to call me Aaron, that's fine too.
Yeah. I'm sure your family doesn't call you Freddie.
No, yeah, my family's, you know, Aaron. You know, it's been 20 plus years at this point that like I've gone by Freddie. So yeah, it's fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when did you start going to shows like in Lynchburg and coming to shows in Richmond and stuff like that?
Yeah. So yeah, it was really interesting. The type of music that I kind of started off listening to, I mean, moving into Lynchburg and like, just like huge Nirvana fan, huge 9 Inch Nails fan, really started to get more into like Propaganda, Against Me, No Effects, and I can remember, like, Lynchburg didn't have like a dedicated venue. Like the local bands would play at like the Moose Lodge or
like VFW halls, that type of thing.
Yeah. And I could remember coming up, like seeing like my first like local like small venue show. I'm trying to remember who it was, but yeah, I would drive from Lynchburg to Richmond to go to Twisters. I would go to Mac Rock in Harrisonburg. And I thought that was neat to see like small venues and like see bands play small venues. But the first time I saw a house show was like life-changing.
Yeah, for real.
I was just like, it's insane that like people do this. Like, this is awesome. This is so much fun. It was like a whole like another side of music that I like never thought existed before. I just always thought it was like, if you're a band, like you play at like a club or a huge, you know, amphitheater, and that was kind of all that was available.
Do you remember like what was the first house show you went to, or like one of the first ones?
Yeah, I don't know. I can say some like memorable house shows that I've seen. That were just like, I thought like crazy. I remember going to house shows and seeing this band Ultra Dolphins play, and it was just like such an intimate setting, and it's just like watching the band like play their instruments, and it's like so good. Yeah, but I can't remember like the first house show that I went to.
Yeah.
And this is like kind of also like why we need to take pictures. I think it's great to like document things like that, and you can like remember and like live back in that moment. So
yeah, I started getting into the local music scene when I was in college, and you know, I met people who played in local bands in like the hardcore scene and pop punk scene and like metalcore scene.
yeah,
And you know, I would go to house shows from time to time, and they're always so much fun because one, it's usually a party, you know, so people are drinking and hanging out. But then also these bands are playing, and you know, usually when it's like bands that I enjoy or like that I'm friends with. So that just made like the party atmosphere that much better, you know. I was in a fraternity in college, and I like would get in trouble with people for like putting on like pop punk and hardcore songs like during the party, and being able to like listen to that type of music and like, you know, mosh and shit like with the live band there is like a whole nother level of like experience.
It's amazing. I would love, you know, I know they're still out there.
Yeah.
You know, I know house shows are still happening, and like I'm getting older, and it's like, but I know that they happen, and I think that's great. Having played music and being like in that world myself, it's nice to see that people will like open up their houses and like allow for that like space to still happen. Bands that will like, you know, go on tour and just play house shows primarily. I mean, it's just such a great, I think, subculture that exists, and I'm glad it exists because it was like a big part of my like early teens all through my 20s into my early 30s. Hold it very like close to my heart.
Me too.
Yeah.
I know my wife will probably not be into having a house show, but I used to like dream of like having like a house where I could have house shows. But I also know like there's a downside to that too. Like, you know, living in what some would call a punk house where you have house shows, you know, sometimes it can get gross if people like aren't taking care of the place.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know like how you got into like all of those punk bands that you talked about before, and like who introduced you to that scene.
So when I moved to Richmond, lived in, you know, as many of us did, I lived in a punk house with like, you know, 6 other guys.
What year was this approximately?
So probably 2003 was really when I started like listening to more, I guess at the time considered to be like more underground music. There's a guy I lived with, his name is Greg Bethman, and he used to live here. He doesn't live here anymore, but he grew up in Richmond and grew up like basically, you know, in the city, going to a lot of the like underground shows that were here. And I was all in. I was sold on it. It occupied like every waking moment of my day, so much so that I ended up joining a band and touring for dedicating 7 years of my life to music.
Oh wow! What band was that?
It's called The Riot Before.
Okay. Were they based in Richmond?
Yeah. So the I guess founder behind the band, his name is Brett Adams, originally from California, moved to Richmond with the like mindset to start a band or to put together a band, just because Richmond's cheap to live, easy to get by. It's like the perfect environment to like kind of start a band. And I remember seeing his band play at Nancy Reagan and being like, holy shit, like.
Was that before or after Twisters?
That was after Twisters.
Okay.
So yeah, this would be probably 2005, 2006.
Okay.
But I remember watching him play and just being like blown away. And so much so, I went up to Brett after the show, was like, "Hey, do you need like a drummer? Like, I can play drums." And he was just like, "I don't know, like we've kind of got a drummer." And I was like, "Okay," and like, but he didn't say no, and that's kind of like, he didn't say no, so I kept like pursuing and being like, "Hey, like, I can like, can I try out? And he's like, "You don't even like have a drum set." And I was like, "Don't worry about it, like we'll take care of it."
Yeah.
And I borrowed a drum set. I like sat with the record for a couple of weeks, and we had like a tryout, and it went really, really well. And I ended up touring for the next 7 years with that band. It was great. And yeah, played a lot of house shows, slept on a lot of couches. Yeah, it was awesome.
Thanks for watching Evolve Podcast. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, True Nutrition. Use Evolve Podcast to get 5% off all True Nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I recommend the cookies and cream flavor in heavy strength, and I add it to waffles, oatmeal, and protein shakes. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because their supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit TrueNutrition.com to supplement your workouts and nutrition. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 10% off all weight train and athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. They have great clothes for the gym wear, for men and women. Visit weighttrain.com for all your gym gear needs. Last is not dead yet. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 15% off all clothing and accessories. The goat shorts and shirts are some of the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops you're stoked on. Visit notdeadyet.com for clothing to remind the world you are not dead yet. Now, back to the show.
So what brought you to Richmond in the first place? Was it music, like to live with those guys in that punk house?
Yeah.
Was that the impetus for it?
So yeah, in Lynchburg, two friends that I would consider like my best friends, all through high school. Well, one of them like got into college.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, shit, like what, I can't, like my friends are like moving away.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to like figure out like how to get out of here. So really the real push for me was when, my friends went to college. I was like, well, I can't like just stay here. So yeah, so that like got me wanting to move out of Lynchburg, which I eventually did a year later, which like consisted of basically just like working a bunch of jobs so I could just like move out.
Yeah. So you didn't have any interest in going to college?
I didn't. I tried college. I did a semester at the Lynchburg Community College, and I don't know. It was not for me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So
did you graduate high school?
I did, yeah. So graduated high school, and even high school was like, for me, I was more like, I can't wait for this to be over with so I can like do other things.
Mm-hmm. And you were playing in bands at the time in high school.
Yeah. Even in high school, like I think a big event when you're in your junior, senior year is like beach week. Which my beach week was the band I was playing with at the time, our high school band. We like packed up our parents' like conversion van and did like a little 5-day like Virginia tour.
Awesome.
You know, and like that was great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just never really like had an interest with high school. I was never really into it. With college, like I think I tried it because there's like pressure from your parents to go, and but yeah, I was never really into it. So when I moved to Richmond, it wasn't because I wanted to go to BCU. It's just like I wanted to be close to my friends.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So how did your parents respond to your decision to drop out?
I think they were like, my parents are great. Like they have always been supportive. Like, well, if you're not going to go to college, like you need to like, you can't like live here. Like
right.
You need to figure out like what you're going to do for work. So, when I did the one semester, I'm sure like if I was to ask them now if they were nervous, they'd probably say, yeah. But at the time they were like, well, no, you got to find a job.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Well, it sounds like it went pretty well. Like at least they were, supportive of your decision, and, they held you accountable to like taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was some degree of shit giving, but at least they respected your decision.
Yeah, my parents were really great. Like, even though I would say I grew up in Lynchburg, which is like very, very conservative. My parents never really like religious or like included that in their parenting, or like whatever political way that they lean was never like a way that they would like try to like parent. It was always just like, be nice, treat people with like the way that you want them to be treated.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, and that's great, which I think was, kind of had the overlap when, it came to big decisions like school or no school. What are you going to do for work? Getting in a van and touring for 7 years because, I wanted to be a full-time musician. They always like allowed me to like explore those spaces, like, and it's just like would be supportive where they could be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship like with them now? Do they still live in Lynchburg?
Yeah, so they're divorced. Still have like a really good relationship with both of them. My dad lives in Virginia Beach, and then my mom lives in Frederick, Maryland. So,
okay.
But yeah, they're great. You get, the older you get, it's you try to spend more time with your family because everyone's getting older.
Yeah.
So. And
do you have any siblings?
I do. So I've got two brothers, Colin and Greg. Colin lives in DC, and my brother Greg lives in Virginia Beach.
Cool.
And they're they're great. So.
Yeah. What part of Virginia Beach does your dad and brother live in?
Yeah, so they live like pretty far up on Atlantic.
Towards the ocean front?
Yeah, my younger brother Greg is it's a small studio apartment, but it's like just him. There's like no bells and whistles to like the apartment, but it's right on the beach.
Nice.
So that's great for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My folks, they live in Virginia Beach as well. They've been living there for like almost like 20 years now.
Yeah.
They live in the Great Neck area, which is not too far from the ocean front, but a little further inland in a more like suburban area.
Yeah.
They used to be closer to Cox High School, but now they're closer to First Colonial High School.
Okay.
But yeah, I was born in the Philadelphia area, but Virginia Beach is where I consider to be my hometown.
Yeah.
Because I spent most of my formative years there.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you have that mutual connection.
Yeah. When was the last time you were back at Virginia Beach?
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
I'm typically only going down there for like holidays and birthdays.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think the last time may have been Christmas, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, not too often.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I was. My partner and I were down there a couple weekends ago. Man, it's grown a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot. We stayed. I like to stay like right around 12th and like Atlantic, like the ocean front. Kind of like it's good people watching.
Yeah. Especially during the summertime.
Yes. But yeah, they've got the whole like vibe district with all the murals up now.
Yeah.
You've got the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art is awesome. Yeah, I was like had a great time.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how the art culture in Virginia Beach has really blossomed, and I know the city has been very supportive of that, especially with bringing festivals like Something in the Water that Pharrell hosts.
Totally, I think that's great. And like the great thing about Richmond is like, we're just like kind of right in the pocket. I mean, it's not that far away from Richmond. We're close to the beach, we're close to the ocean, we're close to like great hiking, great camping, rent.
It's gone up,
it's
but
getting a little crazy. But for the most part, like it's not as high as like some other places. I think Richmond's a really unique city and kind of one of a kind in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. It's really special.
Yeah.
I knew after college I didn't want to stay in Virginia Beach too, for a similar sentiment. And what you shared about Lynchburg, and even now, like it has gotten a lot cooler. I will say that. But I love Richmond. It's great for so many reasons, and as I've gotten older and I can appreciate being outdoors more, being on the James River, riding like bike trails, that really makes it really sweet too. And to see the bike community grow to what it is now has really been very special too. And I'm grateful to be a part of that, as I know you are as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's when I first moved here, I didn't have a car, so like that's how I got around. Was bicycle, which is like a whole nother. If I can just like go to the side for it, it's like blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like, just didn't realize that what bike culture was or could be, or I mean. Like what an alley cat race is, or it's just like pretty incredible. The bike community here is, I think, very supportive and has grown exponentially over the years, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
and I feel like it feels good to be a part of. So. Yeah.
For those who are uninformed, could you just briefly explain what is an alley cat?
Yeah, sure. So, and gosh, hopefully I do this justice. The way that I understand an alley cat is a unsanctioned race, bicycle race, through mapped out through the city, and it's based on first, second, third. So based on fastest time to completion wins. But I think there's also in some certain alley cats, there are checkpoints and like double dare, like physical challenges that need to be completed throughout the course of an alley cat. For example, we were a stop on an alley cat race, and the challenge that we had was, it was so ridiculous. It was like, eat an entire like head of iceberg lettuce. And it's just like, that's the challenge, and like that's what you get. Other like alley cat races that I've been a part of, or Slaughterama event, I believe one of the checkpoints was get a job application from the Jefferson Hotel, which is like, you know, historic, you know, 5-star restaurant hotel, and then you have all these like bike punks coming in like asking for job applications. But anyways, I think an alley cat is basically, it's an unsanctioned race that goes through a city, and it doesn't typically follow like a set route, but it's more of like hitting your checkpoints and completing those checkpoints, and then crossing the finish line.
And I know, like, at those checkpoints too, you know, if it's not a physical challenge, sometimes there's like a scavenger hunt element to it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
I participated in, I don't know if it would be technically considered an alley cat, but alley cat-esque event last year. It was the Cranksgiving event. Okay. Where you had to, we picked up like a bunch of non-perishable food at Scuffle Sound Park in like groups of teams, and you had to deliver the food on your bicycle to like the various RVA community fridges around town.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is great. I'll just say, like, that is like doing, you know, your community like responsibility, but making it fun and getting people involved. That is great.
Yeah. And then afterwards they had like an after party at Rag and Bones Bike Shop, the old location. The new location hasn't opened yet. Yeah. But that was right before the first location closed. And that was super fun, and they had like a bunch of raffles from some other community partners, and I won a couple of the raffles, which was really sweet.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So how did you get into cycling in the first place? Was that something you started doing in Lynchburg?
Not really. I really didn't start riding a bike until I moved to Richmond, and I loved it. It was the reason I started was kind of based out of necessity.
Right, for transportation.
And then the more I kind of got involved with it, the more it kind of became like finding out community and like and getting involved in more like bike related events.
And I know like you have been very involved in like bike events around the town. What are there any like groups that you're affiliated with, or do you just sort of follow along on what's popping up on Instagram?
Yeah, I kind of do that. I tend to ride more by myself, which isn't like, it's not like a statement or anything. It's just, but I think when I do ride, there are some clubs or organizers out there that are doing great things. Emily Monroe is one of them with Mountain Cat. You've got Roll Call, which does early morning rides. Bike Buds are phenomenal people that do really interesting rides. You know, been on a few of your rides. I think it's great. So I'd say those are some of the groups that I will ride with, and try to be intentional about it. So Broad Street Bullies is another one. I've done a few of their rides, which is, they all kind of have their own like vibe to it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
As they should, you know. I think it's, you know, all bike culture, it's all great. But, you know, of course, whoever is leading or organizing the ride is going to affect the atmosphere of it. And
Sure.
I know certain groups have certain rules, or like they do certain types of rides.
Yep.
Casual Encounters, the group that I lead.
Yep.
It's mixed surface, so sometimes we'll do gravel and single track, sometimes it's just road, sometimes it's a mix of both. Is there a particular like type of like surface ride that you have a preference to?
Well, I've really only experimented. I primarily ride road. I did just buy a new bike, and I am slowly getting more into gravel. And I know there's tons of routes out there, but me and a buddy last weekend did a couple of laps through Poop Loop, which I think is a great route.
Yeah, it's really
and
fun.
I've lived here, 20 plus years, had no idea that existed. Which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I only found out about it within like the past year or two. For those not aware, at Ancaro's Landing Park on the east end of Richmond, there's a single track loop that is popularly known as the Poop Loop, because if you catch it on a certain day, you might catch a whiff of shit in the air.
It's brutal. It's definitely like holds true to the name.
Yeah.
So.
But it's super fun. It's, I would say, pretty beginner friendly if you haven't rode on single tracks before. Just go at your own pace, of course. It's got some rolling hills, but it's nothing like too technical.
Yeah. And it's, I think, kind of the thing that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think with like gravel riding, more so like mountain bike riding, I think falling is kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Like kind of how you learn. And I think that's like less with road riding. I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Falling on a road bike, I mean, falling sucks, but I think it's like, yeah, if you're out on a mountain bike ride, yeah, you're gonna fall probably, but that's
Right.
like how you like learn to trust the bike.
Yeah,
and your like skill level.
Yeah, and to like find those lines, that will allow you to, go on the trail without falling too.
Right.
Someone explained it to me on a group ride, like briefly in passing. It may have been a joke, but there's definitely some truth to it. If you're not falling, you're not trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well put. I think that's that holds water for sure.
Yeah, and I've taken some falls for sure, and I've scraped my legs up, and my knees up quite a bit. Trail running and trail riding.
Yeah.
But is that part of the fun? Sometimes you don't want it to be, but like you said, like you fall so you can get back up.
Right.
Like anything in life, you have to fail before you can learn, how to do it correctly and do it better.
I mean, evolution does not come through like forcing it. It's just continuous efforts, and I think that's what makes this better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So you have been working various jobs since you decided you didn't want to go to college.
Yeah.
What were you doing before you came to the print shop, the screen printing shop?
Yeah. So it's a pretty weird time for me, 2020 to now. My background is primarily in sales. And when everything shut down, I really wasn't doing anything.
Right.
I was just kind of waiting to see what would happen. But I was like, when I was touring, I worked in back of the house cooking, so I was doing a little bit of cooking here and there. I was also doing like a little bit of like administrative, like kind of admin work, data entry, Nothing like really interesting. But with Triple Stamp, it's been great. They're a great company, and doing sales with anything is hard to do if you don't like believe in the company and believe what you're selling. So for me, having the candid conversation with one of the owners about bringing on another salesperson, and then from just a conversation to actually creating a position, I really had nothing but good things to say about the company, what they do. They are, and it's an industry that I'm not familiar with, so it's still very intimidating, like getting in and understanding what screen printing is and all the kind of the rules and applications and whatnot. But anyways, before Triple Stamp, I was kind of just working odd jobs, which I think was appropriate for what was going on in the world. So
yeah.
Which was also kind of good. Like, I'm glad that I wasn't like really working a job. I like over the pandemic, right around 2022, I like made like the conscious decision, like, well, I'm gonna quit smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
I smoked for 20 plus years and used that time to quit, which was awesome.
That's
and
amazing.
I didn't really have to worry about, going to work where I like work with a bunch of people smoking cigarettes. I was really just kind of working a bunch of like odd jobs.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now that you quit smoking cigarettes, are you not around that as much anymore since you're not working in like the food service industry?
For sure. And it feels great. It was tough to do, but I don't know, it was weird. It was like kind of also looking back, like it wasn't that hard. Like I can remember having my last cigarette and being like, I think this is it. Like I think I'm like done.
You just quit cold turkey?
Yeah. And anytime I wanted a cigarette, I would just like chug a glass of water, or like go run. And then you just don't want a cigarette anymore.
Right.
Also, I feel like nowadays, and I'm not like, I don't have like information in front of me, I don't think that smoking is as big as it was when I was in my 20s. Like
it definitely seems
everywhere.
that way. Yeah. I mean, I know people still do it.
Yeah.
But I know like the anti-smoking ads that were pervasive through the 90s and early 2000s had a major impact. And I think people just started taking better care of themselves. Also like with the legalization of marijuana, I think that had some impact on cigarette smoking.
Yeah.
I used to smoke cigarettes briefly for about 5 years.
Okay. What'd you smoke?
My go-to was like menthol cigarettes.
Okay.
I would occasionally do lights. It's kind of funny. I actually started smoking clove cigarettes because like friends of mine that I was hanging out with at the time like would like have those, and I like the smell of them, so I thought why don't I try that? And then I decided I wanted to get something cheaper.
Yeah.
So I switched to the menthols. But yeah, my parents hated that, and it was a constant source of tension between us, and I would constantly get sick because of it.
Yeah.
Like I was already like, I didn't have the best immune system growing up, and like I had like asthma and stuff.
Right.
So it definitely wasn't good for me. But I like decided that I did want to quit, and I like used like disposable e-cigarettes to like help me like wean off of it, and that
Yeah.
definitely helped a lot. Until I got to the point where I decided I didn't need that anymore. But you know, the way you described your decision to like say like, I think I'm done, like this isn't working for me anymore. That's how I felt about drinking alcohol.
Okay. Yeah.
I quit drinking alcohol in 2019 because, you know, I got to the point where I had been like scaling back my drinking after I got a DUI in 2011.
Oh, shit.
I was trying to change my behaviors, trying to be healthier, but then I just got to a point where I, you know, would have like 1 or 2 beers, and it would like completely derail me for the next day. You know, I would be hungover and like not be able to like go like exercise, go on a bike ride, go for a run. And you know, I just realized, you know, I don't need this anymore. I don't need it to feel confident. I don't need it, you know, to hang out with other people. It's not adding any value to my life, so why keep doing it? So that gave me the willingness to let it go, and you know, it's definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah, it's and that's like thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd walk up to the store to go buy cigarettes, and it was like a corner store, so it's like, I don't know, 3 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like wheezing, and I was just like, man, this is like not okay.
Yeah.
For like me to be like winded doing this, and like, yeah, and then, you know, I would like quit and then start and then quit and then start, and then it became like, if I just would have like one or like many, I would just get like so down on myself.
Right.
And yeah, I was just like, I just do not find pleasure in this. And yeah, it's just like, I remember specifically putting out that last cigarette after lunch, and I was just like, that's it. Like, and yeah, it was the best decision like I ever made. You know, people, I'm sure you ask me, don't you think about it? And it's just like, yeah, sometimes, but it's like kind of like I feel like, man, I can't believe I used to do that, and like how much better I feel now. It's like kind of the way that I'll like think about it. So yeah, it's smoking. Yuck.
Well, congrats.
Thanks.
How long has it been since then?
Yeah, so I quit, it's been a year and a half. So I quit 2022, January 2022.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, so it was cold turkey, and you know, and it's like, you know, if the patch or if I know you can get like different levels of nicotine, like in vaping, if, like whatever works for you, like do it.
Do you vape at all?
I don't.
That's good.
No.
Yeah.
I don't even like fuck around with like smoking like pot. It's just too like, it just runs too parallel to like having a cigarette. So yeah, I mean it's it's no vaping.
And I know some people will also put tobacco in their joints, which is a slippery slope.
I couldn't do it.
Trying to quit smoking.
Yeah. It's with smoking, it's, you know, I have friends to this day that they're kind of just like a social smoker, and you know, I am not wired that way.
Yeah.
I'm either all in or not.
Right.
So what's the abstinence is easier than moderation. So, you know, I just stay away from it.
So we're gonna move towards wrapping up.
Cool.
You seem like a pretty positive person. I want to ask you, like, who is someone in your life who helps you to maintain a positive mindset?
Man, yeah. So I think, here's a great example. I was talking to my best friend this morning, went through high school together, through our 20s or 30s, and now into our 40s. I was like, hey, I gotta go to this podcast today. Like, pretty nervous about it. Because I do suffer from anxiety quite a lot. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm thinking about canceling. Like,
oh no.
And he's just like, and he just, I don't know, he has like he's a good guy to run things by.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can be our like own worst enemy.
For sure.
He definitely has seen me at the lowest of lows, and he'll never hold any of that against me. So he's definitely he makes life great, and I'm very lucky to have such a close friend in my life. It's good to get his opinion on things when I start to stray.
You want to give him a shout out?
Casey Collins, hope you're good. Let's go get turkey dinner later. It's an inside joke.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So next is our mindset moment.
Okay.
What is a quote, tip, or phrase that you use in difficult circumstances to help you stay positive?
There are definitely people that can rise to this like question and be able to like go in the Rolodex of like amazing quotes
mm-hmm.
from like amazing people and be able to do that sort of recall. I am not one of those people, but I think when I am in hard times or hardships, I think my like quote, or I try to like remind myself, is to just relax. And that's very simple for me, and it really like does help if you can like just relax and then to like breathe. Really I think is something that is so easy but also easily forgettable to do.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
yeah.
Especially when you're in the throes of anxiety and the world is spiraling, and it's really difficult to get unstuck in that time.
Yeah. You just have to relax and just take a moment, and everything will be fine until it isn't, and then when it isn't, that's when you're going to deal with it.
Right.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people connect with you if they want to check out your photos or your biking adventures or
Sure.
anything else you got going on?
Yeah, Freddie Clark, FREDDY. That's my Instagram name. That's where I post all of my photos at. I encourage, if you are looking for a cycling group, I'll do roll call, casual encounters, bike buds. They're all on Instagram. You can find their group rides. I think that's like, if you want to like, I don't know, talk about quitting smoking, or I don't know, that's where you can reach me. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, are you playing in any bands right now?
I'm not. No.
Are you looking for one?
That's a good question. I want to say yes, but